There we go. I'd like to call the August meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Paula is not here. Sorry, I missed your name. Justin. Would you call the roll, please?
Alan Brown.
Present.
Jennifer Bourne. Heather Clemmer. Nita Crank Clements.
Present.
Greg Eddington.
Present.
George Massey.
Present.
Mary Jo Meacham.
Present.
Jeffrey Parks.
Present.
Ann Zacharitz.
Present.
So we have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
Okay, I'd like to go over the meeting process real quick. The chairman will announce each case and ask any party having interest in the case to indicate their presence by raising their hand. Commissioners will then discuss the details of the case, calling on staff to provide details of the proposals. Following this discussion, commissioners may choose to ask questions of the applicant, the staff, and any other interested party. Interested persons may speak to support or protest the application. The applicant will be entitled to one brief rebuttal. Interaction between applicant and protestants on the floor is not permitted. Persons speaking are asked to approach the center podium one at a time to introduce themselves by name and address and to present their position as succinctly as possible. The Commission asks each speaker to limit his or her remarks to no more than 5 minutes. Following this public hearing on an application, the Commission will take one of the following actions. 1, approve the certificate of appropriateness. 2, continue the proposal. 3, deny the proposal with prejudice, which means the application may not be resubmitted for at least 1 year unless the commission determines that circumstances have changed. Or 4, deny the proposal without prejudice, which means the applicant may reapply at any time. Certificates of appropriateness. When an application has been approved and after a 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the CA to the applicant. I'm so used to email. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA has been issued. And then any person aggrieved by any decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the court of the BOA. Those instructions are also on the back of your agenda. And also I'd like to ask everybody that if they would to silence their cell phones. So with that, we'll get started. Second item from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer.
Just announce that we'll be having a Commissioner Assistance and Mentoring Program training for HP Commission as well as our other design review bodies September 11th, and then we'll be doing another all-commission committee training like we did a year ago on December 11th of this year. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. All right, item 3, acceptance of the minutes of the previous meeting from July. I was not here, but are there any comments on the minutes? Corrections? Motion for acceptance?
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved by Neil Craig Clements and seconded by Ann Zachrist. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted. On to item 4, the code enforcement report, and we're going to welcome Greg back.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you.
Any questions, or is there anything I can research for you?
You're probably just gearing back up, but I saw that 2325 Northwest 25th, it was on the third item, dilapidated house or structure. Is that do you know if that's the main house or a detached garage or what that one was?
2325.
Northwest 25th.
I do not. I have to research it, but the best of my recollection wasn't that just the detached garage, second house over from the street.
Yeah.
I believe that's what it is.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for Greg?
Great. I'll confirm it and get back with you if there's anything different.
Thank you. Okay, with that, on to item 5, continuance announcements and requests.
We have one request for a continuance, and that would be to the October meeting. I'm going to look at Rita for the actual date, you know. Sorry, you're my date person.
It is October 7th.
Okay.
Okay, would like to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Neil Craig Clements and seconded by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the item is continued. And now on to public hearings. I understand there's a request.
Yeah, I would like to move item 7 under other business. It is consideration of the Marion Hotel Historic Landmark designation. One of the commission powers is to designate historic properties as historic landmarks. I recommend designation of them. And since this was kind of a big deal, and we have one of our first times that we've done this, and we have quite a large audience at the beginning of the meeting, I would like to move this forward, please.
The motion?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved by Neil Craig Clements, seconded by Ann Zachrist. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item is moved forward. Katie?
And Angela just ran back across the street because we realized our PowerPoints are not here for you. So you all have, I apologize that the audience can't see what we have in our packets, but we'll have that back up and running once we get to the actual applications. As Neil said, this is consideration to recommend designation of the Marion Hotel as a historic landmark and add an HL overlay to the property. The Marion was constructed in 1904 and was listed as a contributing property within the Automobile Alley National Register District in 1999. For the Commission's consideration is whether the property meets at least one of the criteria for designation. And so we prepared a staff report that identified how it meets several of those criteria. Under the historic cultural category, we've identified significance due to its role in the development of the Midtown area and the evolution of the offering of various housing types within Oklahoma City. This all happened at a very key time for the development of multifamily housing and the development of Midtown in Oklahoma City during a big population boom for the city. And it is one of the first of those multifamily housing types to be built and one of the last to remain from that first phase of development. It has distinguishing characteristics of its architectural type and is rare in its time period and building type and architectural style for Oklahoma City. It contains details, construction methods, craftsmanship that are unique to its era, and is believed to be the work of a local architect who built many other prominent buildings in Oklahoma City at that time, very few of which remain today. And then finally represents an established and familiar visual feature of the neighborhood and is an iconic part of the skyline for downtown and midtown Oklahoma City. So you have before you a resolution that you can adopt, and by resolution recommend the rezoning of the Marion as a landmark. I think we also have the property owners here if they had any comments they wanted to make.
Would you like to come forward?
Hi, Chris Fleming, Midtown Renaissance, 1225 North Broadway, and we're pleased to be here and not have to ask for a demolition permit of this building. But we're proud of how it turned out and appreciate everybody's patience as we figured out how to make this building work, and we're glad to support this rezoning application and keep this building what it is for posterity. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Okay. Nice job. Anybody have questions? Or
I would just like to commend staff for their excellent report, because this is a property that is was just originally listed as part of a district, and so there was very little research included in the original nomination. Staff really did a great job, and I enjoyed reading about it. So thank you very much.
And I wanted to thank Chris Fleming and Mickey Clegg for an excellent rehab of the property and for supporting this effort. I would like to recommend the rezoning and designation of the Marion Hotel as a historic landmark to the Planning Commission and City Council, and adopt the resolution provided as part of the staff report.
okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved by Neela Clements and seconded by Greg Eddington. All in favor? Aye. Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Item is recommended to the council.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. Next item.
Under public hearings, dilapidated structures, HPCA 15-00081 at 2900 North Harvey Parkway, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Request to receive Historic Preservation Commission comments regarding house and detached garage structures in the process of being declared dilapidated, as initiated by City of Oklahoma City Development Services Department Code Enforcement Division, pertaining to 1, properties that contribute to the historic integrity of the historic district, and 2, effective proposed demolition of structure on the historic character of the property and district. I know we have some people here that are interested in this application. Just want to clarify for the audience and for the commission that this is a property being taken through the city's process as a dilapidated structure, so the commission does not get to approve or deny anything today. They are purely making a recommendation on the property's historic significance and whether it contributes to the historic character of the district. The final decision on whether or not the building is to be demolished is to be made by City Council. So the Commission's recommendation will go on to City Council.
If you remember, this is the house we toured. So,
Is anyone here from Development Services? I have a question. I don't know if Katie you can answer this, but when it comes to requesting approval for demolition, does Development Services seek the opinion of a structural engineer, or they just do everything in-house?
They have experienced staff, their code enforcement officers go out based on complaints, and depending on what the complaint is, they inspect it for that, and then they note anything else they see. The statute has a definition for what is and is not a dilapidated structure, so they follow the statute. And if any of those conditions exist, then they note those on their report. So it's not from an engineering perspective, but it is from a statutory perspective.
Well, I'm looking at the letters from different neighborhood associations, and at least 2 of the people that wrote letters actually are professionals in rehabbing dilapidated homes. And it is their opinion that this should not be torn down. Secondly, we don't want to reward demolition by neglect. Someone purchased this in February of 2014. Why haven't they done anything to protect it? So my thought is that we do not recommend demolition.
Right, and just to clarify, we don't actually recommend that it be demolished, but y'all, on top of the comments about whether it's historic and whether it contributes to the character, you guys can add to those comments as you see fit.
Is a representative, excuse me, Jim.
No, go ahead.
Is a representative from the neighborhood here, anybody like to speak? Hello.
Hello. My name is Betty Coates, and I live at 2601 North Hudson Avenue in Jefferson Park. And we have discussed this many, many times in our neighborhood meetings, and we feel that we have rehabilitated houses in much worse condition than this is. We would really be upset if this gets demolished, because Sparrow Park was a big part of our historic preservation application, and it's a very important property to our neighborhood, and we as a neighborhood feel that way, and we object to demolition. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Shannon Rundle, 431 Northwest 20th, and I'm here because of my association with the Historic Preservation Alliance. All 9 neighborhoods, as you all know, formed an alliance, and we have communicated on this. But I was going to add to what Betty said. I looked up the National Register application, which was done, I think, by John Calhoun years ago when Jeff Park wanted to be at HP, and the wording that I remember is that Sparrow Park and the bungalow cottages surrounding it are of an extremely strong feature for this historic district. And I think just on the basis of its location around the park and the fact that it has been mentioned in a group of bungalows makes it very historic. And anyway, but all the HP neighborhoods have chimed in on this, as they did before when this came up, that we've, everyone in all these neighborhoods has seen something in much worse condition. And I think the question is, when these people bought the property, were they cited to do work on it? Were they even supposed to trim the bushes back? You really can't even see the house. They haven't done anything.
How long ago was we went to look at it? Katie, do you remember? Is it in the report?
Seems like it was last summer.
Yes, it was over summer 2014.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are the questions I think that the HP neighborhoods are asking, because frankly, everyone is concerned with our neighborhoods not becoming those downtown neighborhoods anymore that were very trendy and very popular. A lot of developers are wanting to come in and find lots to build on. And fortunately, there aren't a lot of vacant lots in our neighborhoods, and I think we are afraid that we're going to see a lot more demolition requests just because somebody wants to build on it, not because the house can't be saved. Thank you.
Thank you. Has the owner commented on this at all?
We haven't had any correspondence with the owners. I don't know if they want to speak.
Are they present? Okay. I guess they don't want to speak. Any more discussion? Motion?
I just want to make a comment that I'm in agreement with the people. I want everybody in the audience to know that all of the associations did write letters. They all said the exact same thing. They all have the exact same fears. And I just think that we should, as they've said, all of these neighborhoods came together as neighbors in a neighborly way with the same intent to preserve the properties. And I think that this goes totally, 100% against the intent of historic preservation neighborhoods. I wouldn't think that anybody that's moved in and invested their money wants to see something like this happen or set a precedent, which is mentioned in several of the letters from the neighborhood associations. I think from Jefferson Park, they said we've restored houses that were in much worse shape. And I'm in agreement. I think that this leads to, purchasing homes and perhaps, just doing nothing with your property, which is not the intent of the neighbors that are trying to restore these neighborhoods to have people come in and do that. This particular property, in my opinion, it is an important property. In neighborhoods like this, there's generally not one house that stands out. It is all of the small properties that work together to make the neighborhood historic. So anytime that you lose one property, like we say in preservation, it's like losing a tooth. So the tooth is gone. You want a gold tooth back, it is not going to be the same set of teeth. And in this case, that's what I feel like is happening. And just the effect of, it's one thing if we have a fire, it's one thing if, for a lot of things. But in this particular instance, when we went there a year ago, there were at least 4 or 5 people on the commission, professionals that have worked in construction, remodeling, architects. We've had, and everybody at that time, 1 year ago, felt like that the house could be saved. There was not a question. So in 1 year for this to happen, it would be a little different. We've had situations where things go on for 15 years, all sorts of things, and they've still been saved. This is in 1 year. I just want to say that I'll make a motion to say that the House does contribute to the historic integrity of the historic district, and it will have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district if this house is removed.
Okay. The motion?
That's enough.
Okay. Is there a second?
Can I add a comment to that?
Yes.
I agree with all the staff comments that they've listed in Section E. I would just like to add that we forward that demolition by neglect should not be common practice, nor should it be rewarded. And I second.
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Joe Meacham, second by Neela Craig Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, application is not. Or, excuse me, what's the official action? With our comments. Thank you. Next item.
B, National Register nominations. Santa Fe Depot National Register nomination at 146 Southeast Gaylord Boulevard, Ward 7. Consideration and possible action on resolution recommending the National Register nomination of Santa Fe Depot, the Mayor and City Council, the Oklahoma Historic Preservation Review Committee, the State Historic Preservation Officer, and the Keeper of the National Register. This nomination was actually prepared by the city. We used our certified local government funds over the past year to hire a consultant to prepare this nomination. The city is in the midst of doing a major rehabilitation of the train station to make it into a transit hub for Oklahoma City. And so the station had already had a determination of eligibility as part of that process and was already going through Section 106 review process. So the nomination was kind of just a feather in the cap of that project to acknowledge the significance of the depot historically and today. The nomination identifies the station as significant for its architecture, which is an excellent example of the Art Deco style and is rare in Oklahoma City in its horizontality, as opposed to most of our Art Deco buildings that are vertical skyscrapers. It's also historically significant as the first train depot in Oklahoma City that predated, well, it's the location of the first depot that predated Oklahoma City's establishment and was the last train line to stop passenger service out of Oklahoma City, so has an incredibly significant role in the commercial and social development of Oklahoma City as one of the major train stations in its location in downtown. I'll read the resolution really quickly that summarizes the significance. A resolution of the City of Oklahoma City Historic Preservation Commission recommending the Santa Fe Depot is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places, whereas the Santa Fe Depot is located within the incorporated area of the City of Oklahoma City at 146 South E.K. Gaylord, whereas the National Register of Historic Places nomination demonstrates the importance of Santa Fe Depot to the history and culture of Oklahoma City, whereas the Santa Fe Depot building is locally significant in the area of architecture and transportation, whereas the Santa Fe Depot, constructed in 1932 through 34, is an excellent but distinctive example of the Art Deco style in downtown Oklahoma City and retains a fairly high degree of historic integrity, whereas the Santa Fe Depot is a critical link to the city's past in which the railway largely contributed to the growth of Oklahoma City, and as the only remaining building on the east side of South E.K. Gaylord, historically South Santa Fe between Main Street and the I-40 corridor, and the only thoroughfare from its named beginning at Southwest 3rd Street north to Main, whereas the cessation of passenger rail service in 1979 by Santa Fe Depot marked the end of 90 years of continuous passenger rail service in Oklahoma City and the end of a significant transportation era that was crucial in the development of Oklahoma City, whereas the Santa Fe Depot National Register nomination, prepared by Cynthia Savage, architectural historian, on behalf of the property owner, the City of Oklahoma City, is an accurate and scholarly written document, whereas this action is consistent with the provision of Chapter 59, 3302.2 of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, contained in the Zoning and Planning Code, Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010. Now therefore be it resolved by the Historic Preservation Commission that the nomination of Santa Fe Depot to the National Register of Historic Places is hereby recommended for approval to the Mayor and City Council, the Oklahoma Historic Preservation Review Committee, the State Historic Preservation Officer, and the Keeper of the National Register. Cynthia Savage is commended for her documentation of this important resource, which is representative of Oklahoma City culture and heritage. That BNSF Railway and the City of Oklahoma City are commended for their commitment to the preservation of the Santa Fe Depot and the history and culture represented by this important resource. There's staff, Linda Ozan from the State Historic Preservation Office is here if anyone has questions or if she has any additional comments.
Hello?
Hey, Linda Ozan with the State Historic Preservation Office, 800 Nazi Zudi Drive in Oklahoma City. So I'm here to answer any additional questions you have, but I want to take the moment to thank you for sponsoring the nomination and finally seeing a building through that has been worthy of being designated for quite some time.
This one was a fascinating read, I thought. I couldn't put it down. All the history of railroad, and then the connection between this property and the civic center buildings like the one that we're in, and sort of the architectural connection between those I thought was really interesting.
Absolutely. It's quite an extensive history of the development of the railroad and its importance to Oklahoma City.
Sure.
So
Sure.
the nomination was very well written.
Okay. Good job. Any more questions? Is there a motion? Sorry.
I would move to recommend the nomination of Santa Fe Depot to the Mayor and City Council, the Oklahoma Historic Preservation Review Committee, the State Historic Preservation Officer, and the Keeper of the National Register, and adopt the resolution provided as a part of the staff report.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Jeff Park, seconded by Ann Zachrich. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's recommended.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on to the consent docket, right? Yep.
We have 3 cases on the consent docket. Commission's welcome to pull anything that you have concerns about or if you have questions for staff.
Okay. Any questions? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent docket.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Neil Crank-Clemens and seconded by Greg Eddington. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, consent docket is approved. On to individual cases.
HPCA 15-00008 at 711 Northwest 20th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Leif and Michelle Swedlow for certificate of appropriateness to 1, build stairs to side door required, 2, replace garage door required, 3, replace windows required, and 4, replace porch skirting required. And I just wanted to note that we've already corresponded about the garage door and are working towards an administrative approval of that. So I think that one can just, the garage door can be continued, and then we'll get an administrative approval on that item.
Mr. Chairman, I need to abstain on this case.
Okay. All right, we have 1, 2,
And I would move that we continue
5, 6.
HPCA 15-00008, item 2, the garage door, to what meeting?
October 7th.
October 7th? Okay. Get that one.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Neil Clemens and seconded by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, item 2 is continued. Last 3 items. Is the applicant present? Yes. Okay. Would you sign in, please, and state your name?
I'm Leif Swedlow. I'm the owner. I apologize if I sound like I have marbles in my mouth, but I appreciate Ms. Meacham's comment about getting your tooth pulled. I got a tooth pulled this morning. I don't think this will be nearly as difficult as that event.
We've been told, however, that
It's like pulling teeth. All right.
I appreciate staff's report. It looks like the only thing that there's any debate or concern about is the porch skirt. I think that staff has recommended approval as to the windows. I can provide the board with some additional details about the windows, why downstairs windows have been about 80% replaced, but upstairs has not. This relates to lead paint, very bad condition windows, and having children born, and the pace of renovation in this project, in this house that is our homestead, has been glacially slow, unfortunately, but of course we had to redo the outside. We had to rebuild the entire porch, which we did as faithfully as we could to the original. So you will be seeing me again when we get to the stage of doing our final phase. I think that we'll be able to administratively apply for the driveway when the time comes. We withdrew that from this particular one because we're just not going to get there this go-around. But there are some more steps to do, and certainly when it comes time to do the rest of the property, the upstairs windows, I'll be back asking for a separate certificate, most likely on that. I don't presume that getting the approval of what's been done so far would necessarily allow me to finish, but my plan would be to use the exact same windows as needed on the upstairs. And the examples I provided staff were actually photos from upstairs windows that haven't been replaced yet. I know I'm rambling a bit. Back to the point where I think we're not quite completely aligned yet would be the porch skirting. I note that in the staff report it was mentioned that typically you see lattice. We removed the cinder block, which was clearly not consistent with the rock face that's used elsewhere on the foundation and stem wall of the house. Now, we set that aside and saved it in case, but I'm quite confident that that was modern material filled in after the original skirting was removed. I've gone and driven the Mesta Park and Heritage Hills neighborhoods quite extensively, and I noticed that very few of the houses still have their wood porch. This one does, and we retained that, we kept it. And very few houses have their original wood skirts underneath the porch. This one, we've returned to wood skirting. The question is whether we've done it appropriately or not. I think staff didn't see a historical precedent or analog to the vertical slats that I used as opposed to the crisscross lattice that is fairly typical. And I appreciate that the board is not supposed to really look at new material, new evidence. I got staff's report on Friday, and I redrove the neighborhood because I didn't already have a photograph, but I know that there are at least a couple of properties in the historic district in Mesa Park that do use a vertical slat design on their skirts, and that was what I attempted to model this restoration after, was what I observed in other properties, so that I would have a look that didn't distract from the very important visual impression of the upper deck of the porch, which has these unusually broad, heavy columns to it. I didn't want the lattice to detract from kind of the verticality of those elements. I brought additional copies. I did take a photograph of 822 17th Street, which is a similar four-square, although it's finished in stucco on the outside. Its porch does have vertical slat skirting that reflects the porch rail visually. So that's where I stand on that. Staff notes that my skirt work is reversible, so if you say no, I will be coming back with the crisscross lattice, although I have noted that other properties in the neighborhood, most of them use it diagonally, but I've observed some of them that use it vertically, and I've done additional homework to figure out exactly the right way to install that lattice if that's what you decide I need to do. Any other any questions?
Thank you for this. You do see the lattice, crisscross lattice, diagonal lot. I haven't noticed this before. Any comments?
I guess with this photograph you provided, we don't know whether that's historic or that was added without approval, so it's kind of hard to look at that.
I can't say for sure either. What I can tell you is that the homework I did over the weekend, based on what I saw in the staff report, the Sears catalog in 1910 sold a selection of decorative vertical slats specifically for use in skirting. Now, these aren't decorative, but they are vertical slats. So my position on it is that it's consistent with the look and feel of the house. I don't have any reference to tell me that anything specific, to tell me specifically what was used before the cinder block, but I know for sure the cinder block wasn't accurate, wasn't historically consistent. So my belief was that anything was better than the cinder block during the process of rebuilding the whole front porch. So I do see it on some other houses in the neighborhood. I've gotten comments from neighbors passing by or from people jogging down the sidewalk that they loved the look of it when we finished the work, actually at the end of last summer. So it's just a question of whether it is acceptable or whether I should revert to the more common lattice work.
Okay, thank you.
Could you tell me again, Leif, why it is you know the cinder block was not historic because the report says the opposite?
It was the type of relatively cheap concrete. That's the same kind of concrete cinder blocks you can buy at the hardware store. There was a design that appears to have come out of the 70s, and the mortar work holding it in there was clearly not original to the house. It didn't have as many paint layers on it as some of the original paint work. It was kind of, you know it when you see it, this was not part of the original construction.
I would say the ventilated blocks in particular, I don't know about the rest of the blocks, but the ventilated blocks that were there definitely do not look like they're from the era that the house was built.
You know, the random pattern is
Right.
something you would see.
Exactly.
I agree.
That's right. Yeah.
One additional note I can provide is that the slats as I installed them are not framed. My research tells me that I will want to go back and revise that so that the slat work is actually within a frame, as you would typically see properly with lattice. When I drove through the neighborhood this weekend, I see a lot of houses that have the lattice that is not framed, which my reading tells me isn't quite right, but at least it's better than nothing. So I do plan to revise this myself in time to put a full frame around it. The question is whether I can keep that visual treatment or whether I need to go to the lattice work, is really what it comes down to.
Anybody else have comments? Kind of gets down to one item, more or less.
I'll make a motion to approve item 1 with the specific findings by staff. Can I approve all of them at the same time? Okay. Approve item 3 with the unique circumstances stated by staff and the findings, and approve item 4, replace the porch skirting. However, if you change what you've done already, I would recommend that you come back to staff with
Right. I would anticipate incorporating that when I come back for a certificate for driveway replacement and upstairs windows, which is probably about when the next big round of work will happen.
Do you want to add any findings for the skirting, since our recommendation wasn't approval on that item?
I mean, findings would be that the skirting material and design is reversible, and it's possible that it was a design used on this style of house.
And a finding that the CMU does not appear, the concrete block that was in place does not appear to have been historic.
Yes.
Okay.
I think, if I understand it correctly, I think what the gist of that is I've made it better. It might not be its final state, but better is certainly better than inappropriate. Is that right? Thank you. That right?
But we want you to come back when you decide on its final state, what you like, so.
Can I ask one more question? I'm looking at the the photograph, and where the ventilated blocks were, am I seeing this correctly, that they were a combination of flat
And ventilated.
and ventilated, both of which appear to be bought at the same time and are not historic?
Yes, they appear to have been the same vintage. The blocks where you see the flat face, they were not solid. They were the hollowed-out cinder blocks with those slightly widened base.
Thank you.
Typical of modern casting.
Okay, thank you. I think we have a motion.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. It's been moved by Joe Meacham, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Been approved.
And I think you'll probably see my application again, but you'll probably not see me in October with the garage doors closed out.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Ann is back.
HPCA 15-00054 at 2329 Northwest 26th Street. Shepherd, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application of Lynette Schwinn by Austin Schwinn for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace concrete porch floor required, and 2, replace porch columns and railings required. I don't believe the property owner was going to be able to be here today. They have asked that the commission consider replacement of the porch columns back to square posts that match what was there historically, but adding a 4th post. Well, I should say first and foremost, they would love it if the commission would approve it as it is, as they initially proposed. If the commission's not comfortable approving that, which was the feedback that we got at the previous meeting, they would like you to consider approval of 4 instead of 3 posts.
Okay. The applicant is not present, okay? So they're proposing 3 equal divisions as in that elevation with square posts. Right now, it's the sort of colonial style.
I mean, I know that they suggested to staff that their reason was it was sagging, but there's also ways to prevent the roof from sagging. I'm not really sure with this spacing that we need to do something that different than the original, when they could put another structural support above the post or something to correct that.
And the 3-post configuration,
I still don't know how we haven't been able to talk to the owners in the last couple of times. I don't know how we're going to how do we do the post thing without addressing the concrete floor?
What do you mean?
They did think they would be able to be here for the September meeting. They live out of state, and the house is their son's. so they said if everything was not approved, they would like a continuance to that September meeting, and they'll do additional research on both alternative measures to support, address sagging with the porch roof, and what would be involved in remediation of the porch floor.
So we're going to say the proportions of the openings on the elevation.
Did they have another continuance?
No, go ahead. So the proportions on the elevation look more historically appropriate when it's to the 3 posts instead of the 4, I think, so.
And the photo they provided, I assume this is from the applicant, is photo labeled H on page 8 of 9, the bottom left. There are 4 columns there, but they're clearly not historic. Looks out of character anyway, so I would agree that 3 columns is more appropriate, and they should be able to add some sort of...
If you look at this photograph, the elevation the way it was, it's symmetrical with 3 posts with 3 equal parts in the 2 dormers. It's all
right.
Well, and I think also it appears that it's intended that maybe the windows are between the posts.
Exactly. Yeah, right. So it would be well saying the same thing. So what do we do? Continue the whole thing?
You can continue to September 2nd.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to continue until the September 2nd. Is that what you're saying? 2nd meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so moved by Joe Meacham, and second by Jeff Parks. All in favor? Aye. Okay. All opposed? The item's continued. Next item. Case. I'm off today.
HPCA 15-00055 at 614 Northwest 25th Street, Paseo, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Cadence Homes by Brad Yoakum for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct house elective, 2, construct garage elective, and 3, install driveway and paving elective. This applicant was heard at the June, it was the June meeting that was supposed to be in May, but we had it in June. So they were heard and continued at that meeting with several comments and suggestions for some revisions. In your packet, you have drawings on page 6 of 29 that are marked up with comments about additional changes that were to be made. And then at your seat, you have drawings that show those actual changes that didn't make it into your packet. And the main changes on the front elevation are changes to the windows in the dormer and height of the porch columns, and then additional windows added on the side elevations. But I believe the applicant is present. They want to summarize changes that have been made, and if you all have questions.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
So I am Brad Yoakum from Cadence Homes. Okay. So we took the recommendations from our last time here. I made those adjustments to the floor plans at our best understanding. Had quite a few back and forths with Katie on this. This is our resubmission, just hopefully for approval today. So we're here to answer any questions or address any additional comments that you may have.
Anybody have any questions?
I do, and maybe Katie can answer this, or one of the architects. On the resubmission we received today, the second-story roof, is it typical to have a flat center there? I'm not sure what you would call that.
Me at the peak?
Peak.
Well, it would be a east-west ridge, very small, very short, but
I think that's the only thing that strikes me as a little different, maybe odd.
Could you explain the changes that you've made to the front?
Yes, so based on, actually on your recommendations, we've shortened the dormer. Our comments last time were that it was too wide, so we've brought that in. We have increased the height of those windows as well, because they were fairly square on the last version. We have widened out the columns there as well to they asked to be in line with that dormer. And we've also lowered the height of the brick work on those columns as well to be in line with the rail. Through our discussions, it came to our attention that that was more common in these historical homes. So,
Okay, the one you're submitting is the loose one that we have, Katie?
Right. You have additional drawings in your packet that have kind of hand-done notations of that, and then we've got a final drawing.
Okay, so the final one has the columns are wider than, as wide or wider than the house. That's the correct one?
correct, yes.
Okay. And could you,
And for the front elevation on the,
I have one more question on the front elevation.
Yes, sir.
Could you tell me what kind of windows those are in the dormer?
those are casements currently, but they are vinyl clad wood. I believe that's correct.
Looks like two casements with a fixed in the center.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It was our draftsman's recommendation that that was for egress, that he would rather have a casement there. We are open to an adjustment if that is.
Are you saying that it's a code issue?
No, it could be from his understanding of it, so that's why he suggested that we put those casements there, so that's off of his recommendation.
Did staff have another suggestion for windows there?
We didn't have a specific anything in the staff report. We've felt like the proportions of that still seem a little bit not quite right.
I'm with you. I still feel like it, for some reason, it just seems, I mean, even though I know you've made changes, for me, when I look at the facade, my eye keeps being drawn to the three windows on the dormer.
Well,
I don't know if it's because they seem so much heavier than the door itself,
sure.
or what.
What if we were to split it up as just two windows and maybe did just a single hung?
I mean, any other?
I thought we were talking about earlier is that the original, when we talked about making those non-square, you dropped the sill and made them taller, but the same width each window, it looks like?
Yes.
We were thinking about making the windows narrower, but the same, more or less the same height as your original elevation. They have more wood below the window.
Sure.
And then you'd have more wall on the sides of the three. I don't know if I don't like the three. What do you think?
Well, I think obviously there are a number of ways to go about it. I think that there's a lot of glass in the front face of that dormer that is not typical of historic districts. And also just the sizes of those panes are very large. If there's a way to maybe make them narrower to accentuate the verticality of the house,
Sure.
and reduce the proportion of glass to wood siding on that face, I think would also help it feel more appropriate.
Right.
Sure.
So what is they said they're 3040. Is that 3 feet by 4 feet each window?
Yes, sir.
That's a big window.
It is.
That's bigger than a door.
We are not, this is based on a original drawing that we took a couple of different things we found online and throughout the city, and just created this. We're not going to hold.
Are you using those for egress?
Yes.
I mean,
there's a certain minimum width then of
There is. I'm not sure off the top of my head with that.
24?
22 inches?
But
I mean, typically, to me, it would be another twin set of double hungs.
Sure.
I mean,
I think it could be another twin set of double hungs. I think it's also not uncommon to see sort of a uniquely shaped or kind of feature sort of window at that location in an historic. I think we looked at a couple of cases back that had that sort of, a little bit something different going on at that location, and it's okay, but just not so big, exactly.
Sure.
Those are big windows, so maybe 3 2-foot windows or something like that?
Okay. We are prepared to adjust.
I mean, that's really the only, I mean, Other than that, I just keep coming back to that one thing. It just seems like that maybe you could do a little, find some more examples of what that size of a dormer would have that was...
I would kind of argue against a double hung because their overall height would be restricted. It might be an odd...
Right, I mean,
I kind of like the two casements, the three windows, as long as they were portioned differently, maybe.
Or maybe a thin one, maybe that one in the middle thinner and the other two, but I don't know.
Our other thought, too, is also to remove that vent and vault that area.
Right.
So that we can go, because we have been restricted by plate height there. So if we were to vault that area to allow for more room on those windows, that would open it
Well, I
up.
personally would not like to see the windows higher.
Okay.
Well,
Vent
I thought you said
requirement?
you wanted more wood at the bottom, though, but
At
you
the
don't want
bottom.
any higher.
If you look back at the original elevation, to me, I would make those three, which look like 3 foot by 3 foot, like 2 feet wide by 3 feet tall, which would reduce would not require raising the head. The head right now is at like 6'8"?
I believe it's there'd be
6'8"?
closer to over 7.
Your plate is
Plate height's at
eight.
8 feet.
Your plate is at 8, so it's got to be 6'8" or 7. So to me, Joe, I think the original one has enough solid wall below the window. It's just that they're too wide and too big.
I'd also suggest that maybe they don't have to be ganged together. If you think of them as three sort of evenly, equally spaced punches or three equally spaced, windows or something, that might help too.
Maybe two with the space in between. I don't really have a set idea. I just know that we keep coming back to that window. Other than that, it looks, no
Could
other...
we be in agreement that if we did 2-foot windows and had a space on the sides and in between them?
I'd have to see that. I kind of like the 3, but...
You do like 3?
Is the vent required?
No, it was to break up that vacant space there.
What do you think about the vent? It seems like unnecessary.
Seems a little, at least it seems oversized. Maybe too much also.
Well, we originally did not have that in there. That was based on a staff recommendation. So.
I think it could be smaller. I don't know that maybe it goes away, but I don't know that it has to. But I think it would be better if it were smaller.
Okay, no problem.
Maybe that's just adding to that whole drawing your eye to the
It's like a bullseye.
circle in the...
It's like a bullseye up there.
Is the consensus 2 windows or 3? I'm confused.
I prefer 3 just because...
I think I prefer 3 too. It makes it a little different.
Just the size is what you're...
Yeah, to me.
I think 2 might get a little lonely up there.
Okay.
How about the rest of the non-architects?
No, I just keep looking at this, and it doesn't seem, it's a nice design. It just doesn't seem like it fits the character of any other house in Paseo. It seems like, to me, more of a house that would be built in Mesta Park. There's just nothing else really like this in that neighborhood. That's not to say it's not a good design, but that's my thought. I also had a question of the applicant. The property immediately west of your proposed project, 614 Northwest 25th, it's a 2-story. How is the finished height going to be, how will it be compared to that property?
I don't have those original drawings.
Yeah, they did provide drawings that compared the total height and the finished floor height with neighboring structures, and that was in your previous packet, but it didn't make it into this one.
I want to say they're within 4 feet of each other, based on...
This one's 4 feet higher or
I
lower?
think theirs was higher.
Sorry?
I believe theirs is higher.
Katie, do you know?
Let me...
Sorry, I wasn't at that meeting.
Oh, yeah, that's all right.
In the meantime, staff had some questions about the side doors and the back doors. Have you all chosen another or submitted another door for staff to comment on, or?
Well, that is a recent comment that
Okay.
that was not. We were focusing on the comments from the last meeting that we had. So
We like to drag this out, have you come back a lot of times, get to know you. No.
yeah,
Well, I think the door that they had selected is a steel door. On that same cut sheet for the door, there was a fiberglass
There's a
door,
fiberglass,
which
yes.
is allowed.
That is
So if you were
We are.
comfortable with the
we are-
fiberglass instead,
yes,
that
is
met the
correct.
guidelines.
It is
Okay.
correct.
So that would, Katie, would that go for the back and side doors? Is that the same door?
That is the same door.
Same door?
In the staff report, we have that as evaluated by the applicant, the porch height appears to align with neighboring porch heights of approximately 2 feet. The structure to the east is 24 feet tall, and the structure to the west is 26 feet tall, 2 stories. And I'll find that in their
And yours is how high?
folder
24.
file.
20, I'm sorry?
24 feet.
24.
The structure to the east, is that a 1.5 story? Or doesn't appear to be a 2-story? Do you know?
To the east is, it looks like a 1.5. I can't tell with that.
And that's 24 feet. The 2-story to the west is
Correct, yeah.
What do we want to do about the windows? Want to continue for that, or do you want to do a staff
can we-
approval, or?
What can we do there?
If there's a suggestion, we are prepared to agree to anything that you suggest. It
Do you
doesn't
want to
matter
call
to
out
us.
what you want, what would be approved, or what could be included? What is the size now?
These are 3040 each.
Each? That's really big.
I think code minimum is less than 24, so you could go 2 feet wide, but I was thinking 2 by 3. Previous version looked like they were 3 feet
They
tall.
are, yes, sir, 3 by 3.
3, which would be a 6
And
foot.
how tall are the ones on the bottom?
Those are 3050 each.
I'm sorry, say that again.
5 feet, yes.
And
5 feet
how
tall.
wide?
Each 3 feet.
The ones on the bottom.
The ones on the first floor.
Oh,
So if that's a 3.5, then would a 2.4,
2 by 3, I was
I mean 2 by 3?
that's what I was thinking. So they had a little more wall below the window.
I think that's great. We'd be happy to agree to that.
Would you be happy with that?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that would be 2 by
drawing it?
3 windows set together.
So in this version, based on staff recommendation, we added the mullions, the wider mullions in between the windows. So these are actually 3 separate windows.
Right, okay, with mullions between.
Yes,
Is that what you're saying? Okay, so the 2 things that I would put as conditions right now would be to accept the fiberglass door instead of the steel door, and to accept the change for the dormer windows to 3 2 by 3, separated by mullions, identical to the mullions between the first floor windows. Is that,
And what about the vent?
delete the vent.
Okay. No problem.
Okay. Are we ready?
Okay, your motion?
Can I add a condition,
Yes,
please? Maybe you'll agree.
by all means.
The height of the porch, is that to be 2 feet? Is that correct? You said it will align with neighboring structures?
Yes, and I apologize for not bringing my
That's okay,
old.
that's okay.
Do you
We
have
just
your-
want to make sure that that truly does align in height with the neighboring structures, and if you find that it does not, we will need to adjust.
That is not a
Would it be
problem.
field adjustment, Katie, or would we go out there and visit?
I think it could be like a staff
Okay.
discussion.
So when you say that, we want to say the floor of the porch
Aligns with the height
to
of
be
the
within,
floor
let's
of
just
the
say
porch
within
line.
what? Within 6 inches, up or down, or exactly, or?
Well, you see, we even made notes here to field verify that 2 feet to 3 feet to make sure that we are in line. So
I would also add that I think it's important that, we don't set these houses too close to the ground, otherwise they look really funny.
Yes.
So I don't want to get ourselves into a position that makes that. I think a little bit of latitude would be an okay thing to keep the height of the base of the house fairly close to what we've shown.
The other thing is it shows a flat from front to back. Is it the grade the same on the front and the back? Usually there's some drop.
It's in the property?
Yeah.
It's definitely, it is flat.
Pretty flat.
It is graded out. It does, at the very back, it does drop off where there's a tree, but
Okay.
as anywhere that we're going to be building is flat.
So it'll be the same in the front?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If you look at the neighboring properties, I mean, they probably have a 18 to 24-inch porch floor, so long as this lot doesn't dip down or do anything,
Not
grading
anything
isn't weird. It seems
unusual,
like
no.
we wouldn't be in a position where the house would sit too low.
Yeah, I think we just want to, as you're preparing to actually build, make sure that the porch is going to be within the range of the porches to either side of you.
Sure.
And emphasize that alignment is what matters more so than the number of, the dimension.
Sure.
Well, except we don't want to be too low, even if it's
Yeah.
lining. So maybe we could say no less than 2 feet?
Well, I think the porches to both sides of it are going to determine that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's not uncommon for us to have a surveyor come out and also get our
Yeah.
final elevation. We can happily incorporate that as well. To make
So
sure
you're saying that the floor of the porch has to be within the parameters of the next door houses?
Yes,
There is a house on both sides?
yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I guess my point is you got two houses that are not going to be the same. If you take the lower one, it's going to
Right.
be too low. So is it going to be halfway between or no less than a certain number, like would look visually acceptable?
No less than the lowest, and no taller than the highest, but no taller than probably 2 feet, right?
But what I'm saying, if you take the lowest one, you wouldn't want to make it the same because it would be too low probably in comparison, because it's going to be different on either side.
I think if the houses to either side are the same height, it needs to match that height.
Yep,
If
but
the
they're
houses
not.
to either side are varying heights, it needs to be between the two. But I don't know that, I think we have blocks where there is a range of heights, and I don't know that we need to pick one.
But visually, I think there's a minimum, like 2 feet.
Okay, so can it be that the floor of the porch has to be higher than the lowest one and lower than the highest one?
And no less than 2 feet. Assuming it's not higher than the others, but, I mean, do you see what I'm saying? It could be too low, depending on which.
Okay, well, we're going to go with that.
Okay.
Okay.
That's why I'd rather have
I think we're ready, maybe.
a firm proposal.
I make a motion to approve HPCA 150055, item 2, with the specific findings from staff, and item 3, with the specific findings from staff, and item 1, with the, what do we call these? With the conditions. Condition 1, that the floor of the porch must be higher than the lower porch of the houses on either side and lower than the highest porch of the houses on either side. 2, that remove the vent from the front-facing dormer. 3, to approve the fiberglass doors submitted for the side and the rear, not the steel doors. And 3, we would accept the windows on the front-facing dormer to be 2 feet by 3 feet high. Casement is accepted.
You have 2 casement with a fixed, is that?
Okay. Casements on the outside, affixed on the inside, with mullions between to be identical to the mullions size used on the paired windows on the front facade of the house.
And I think, say the head height should be the same as the others on the upper floor.
Oh, okay. And the head height of the dormer windows to be the same as the all other second-story windows.
Work?
Yep, happily agree. We happily agree to all those.
Are we in agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that it?
I think that's it. If anybody wants to add something else.
Comments, any questions? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so moved by Joe Meacham, seconded by Anita Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
All right, thank you so much.
you made it.
15-00076 at 427 Northwest 19th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Matt Link and Emily Blaschke for certificate of appropriateness to number 2, construct addition with deck, elective. The commission reviewed this at the previous meeting and approved demolition of a garage in order to make space for the addition in the backyard. And the applicant has provided several changes to the design based on comments from the last meeting.
Is the applicant present? Okay, there he is.
Hi.
Hello?
I'm Matt, excuse me, I'm Matt Link, I'm the homeowner.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for the owner?
Did you have any comments about the substitution of the framed lattice instead of the siding?
Yeah, and that's not an issue. That was kind of the original intent, and I'm not sure why that was shown that way on the drawings, but it was our intent to do lattice, so we were going to submit that.
I move to approve 15-00076, item 2, with the following condition, that the skirting of the deck be wood framed lattice instead of siding, with documentation submitted to staff prior to release of the certificate of appropriateness.
Is there a second? Is that you? Been moved by Joe Meacham, second by Neva Clements. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on to, in case done, item D5. Should I announce that, I guess? HVCA-15-00080, 915 Northwest 15th Street. Is the applicant present?
Sam Gresham, 400 Northwest 23rd, here to represent the Snables, and Chase Snable, who's here, the owner. Katie's gone. This application, you guys saw it last meeting. We made some alterations to the plan. There's some illustrations going around that describe what we did. Basically, it's a symmetrical back porch, a back addition to the house. I read the staff report, and unfortunately we got this so late. I would have addressed these in some form in the plans themselves had we had a chance to do that. Our purpose here was to try to create a symmetrical back elevation. It creates something that would be appropriate to a colonial style. I think we accomplished that. There was a comment in here about a complex roof form. We do have a bay window on the side, and the planes of those roofs that cover it are just as minimal as they can be on that inside corner. It sits in the back of the house at the inside corner where it's least visible. Our form is I'm addressing objections. I guess I should ask if you have any questions. George, would you like to begin?
The drawings in the application mirror this the best?
It's the north elevation.
North?
Yeah.
There's only one?
You'll see north and west elevations, which show both. That's the north and west. We're looking southeast from that point of view.
This is the north.
I have a question. and I know staff discussed it in the thing on the part of the guidelines that want to make it clear that it's a new versus old, and there was some maybe discussion on the type of exterior. So how are we going to know that this is the new part?
Well, it offset 8 inches over to the east, and it does cross. I counted on the chimney, the thickness of that chimney to kind of disguise that, but it does cross past the exterior of it's the northeast corner of the back of the existing house. The intention was to not make them perfectly aligned, but to separate them, and the owners were more in favor of separating them out than in, so I work for them. I think that we did have some discussion about moving the building over. We actually talked very extensively about the idea of maneuvering space behind those garages. The planners, as Katie has pointed out, actually don't project past the edge of our bay window, that portion of the back of the house that connects to the kitchen. In the plan, the bay window actually functions as a connector to get you into the house. There's no other way to get into the house and to the kitchen space other than through that connector, but it was made necessarily more narrow because of the maneuvering requirements out of the garage doors, which are right there. I just backed off those garage.
I mean, personally, I think that you made it. I don't know how much smaller you made it, but is it my understanding that you took off the deck upstairs, so it's
Yes.
not? And I think that helped on the front, and on the back, I think the roof lines and so forth. It appears to me that it fits within the guidelines. I do have a comment on the porch. I would like to see perhaps all of the columns on the back be the wood. I'm not really sure what is the purpose of the brick column.
It was just mass. I liked it. Wood's fine.
Just to have a little more, it just seemed a little more colonial to me to have the wood column, but I looked at it. I mean, I think probably it's just a large addition for the size of the house. I think it concerns me. It seems to appear to follow the guidelines, and I think that the changes that you made address most of the questions that I had last time.
The other illustration is the adjacent houses on either side. The smallest of the three is almost twice as big as this house. The lots are roughly the same size. The next one over is 6,300 feet. I mean, that's just next door to the east. The one to the other side of that I had redone. It's been 12, 14, 15 years ago, but it's actually 9,000 feet. It's John and Kathy, you remember that? It's a long time ago. Anyway.
Those are my comments.
There's wood columns everywhere, but there's wood columns everywhere around the house. So that one brick column does seem kind of out of place.
It does to me.
Yeah.
That's all I had noted on in my notes. I mean, I think that it was greatly reduced. I think that the front elevation was really, a big change. I think the way, however you made that change on the back, I think that was clearly looks, it resolves some of the gable roof.
Well, one of the things we were talking about earlier was that was done by offsetting face the wall 8 inches?
Just 2.5. It's very slight. It's very slight.
Okay, it's even less than I thought.
It allows for that there's a cornice, a frieze that runs around the porch on the side. And that frieze tucks into that space, that little offset. It forms the same porch cornice as is on the existing east porch.
I see it.
It's not uncommon to find double gables on the exterior of a building to create that, even on totally flat walls that create the look of that that symmetry that's desirable here.
Are you talking about the part that comes
The
past?
north elevation, the offset of the brick.
Where? Oh.
I mean, it looks good, but it just seems... And I was saying earlier, where's the three-dimensional 3D rendering? And then it's got the Sam Gresham sketch.
Yeah. I made an A.
You always have a sketch.
Yeah.
There it is. So it's basically this offset right here. It's
Yes.
you chose an angle to make it kind of accentuate it. If you look the other way, it looked flat, but flatter. So that's it. That line right there, basically. What do you think? Architectural.
What do I think?
What do you feel?
What do I feel? How do I feel? I think it's a definite improvement. I think the 2.5-inch offset is pretty minimal. I think that it's also the back side of the house. And, of all the faces to give some latitude, certainly the back side is where I'd give some latitude. But again, it's a definite improvement. The bay window is kind of a foreign form. Again, it's on the back side of the house, so I give a little latitude to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Ready? I make a motion to approve HPCA 15-00080. Let's see. Item 1 and item 2.
1 and 2. Right.
With the, my only condition is that the brick column be changed to wood.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Let staff ask for any findings that you might want to address, like the visibility of it or any other, like there's a portion that's still visible beyond the side porch. I don't know if you wanted to add any findings about, since our recommendation didn't have findings for approval.
Are you wanting to include that there is a finding that that a portion of the addition is visible from the front?
Let me see. If you wanted to just look through the actual recommendations, and if there's anything within there that would conflict with an approval, maybe tweak it so that
Okay.
Sorry.
I think number 6 is the one.
So 4, 5,
Number
and 6.
It has a negative effect due to the introduction. I don't know if I believe that. The proposed addition is viewed from adjacent properties. Do you mean from other people's backyards? Has a negative effect on the other people's backyards?
Yes. So I think you can probably strike 7.
We redesigned to ensure the addition remains
because you're approving it.
Yes.
And
I mean, somebody else could make this condition, but
yeah.
I'm not in agreement that I think that they resolve the roof forms.
Yeah, if you want to just strike them.
Okay. With the specific findings not including 6 and 7 on item 1 and including the findings for item 2, number 1 and 2. Does that make sense?
Except 5 also says that it has an adverse effect on 5 is the one that talks about the visibility beyond the side porch. Sorry.
That's okay.
I just want our minutes to make sense and not be an approval with a bunch of findings that it's not appropriate.
So I think you could still, Mary Jo, have 1, 2, 3, and 4, but strike 5, 6, and 7 of the findings.
Are you in agreement?
Yes.
Okay. In addition, strike number 5. Jeff, are you in agreement?
The addition still is visible from the public right-of-way.
It is, but it doesn't say that it can't be visible in the guidelines. It says that it...
So your finding might be that it is visible but does not have an adverse effect.
Okay, I will go with that. So I will include a new one that says is visible, that the proposed addition as designed to be visible beyond and above the existing side porch from the right-of-way does not have an adverse effect on the historic character of this structure.
Did you second it?
Is that
Motion?
motion?
Okay. Was there a second? George did, okay. Accepted that. Okay, it's been moved by Joe Meacham, second by George Massey. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 15-00084 at 2509 North Lee, Paseo, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Home Ownership Made Easy, LLC, for certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove 3 non-historic windows, elective, 2, relocate 1 non-historic window to previous location, elective, 3, install gable vents, elective, 4, make topographical changes to site, required, 5, install retaining wall, elective, and 6, install fence at retaining wall, elective.
Okay, is the applicant present? There he is. Hello?
Hi, guys. I am Nate Dempster. I am the part owner as a partner and general contractor for the property.
Do it all. What's your name again?
Nate Dempster.
Nate. Okay, thank you. All right, any questions? Comments?
Katie, it seemed a little complicated, but you are recommending approval. Could you just give us a brief overview?
You know, I'm actually going to ask Angela to chime in because she's worked with the applicant a lot more closely.
Can I
than
just
have.
kind of give a little bit of an overview?
Sure.
Where to start? Okay, so we purchased the property, certainly didn't know all the problems that existed with the property, largely the grade of the house. So the back part is non-historic. It was added roughly the 50s. But there's also contradictions with the Sanborn maps. First Sanborn maps has it as a 2-story, full frontal porch. The second 2 Sanborns have 1.5-story, full frontal porch. What currently exists is a 1-story with just a little tiny front porch. So what happened to those houses, I don't know. It could be perceived that this house could have actually been moved here. There are, what it is sitting on is cinder blocks, which I believe to be repurposed, as on both sides of the cinder block, the inside and the outside of the cinder blocks are painted blue and green. So the original historic siding exists all the way up and down the house underneath the stone veneer. Even the metal corners are intact underneath the stone. And then, so the stone from the bottom footing up to the top measures about 54, 59 inches. But you can see that rubble has been used plus top fill, and actually a neighbor that was digging in farther down the alley. It is a closed alley. I've got the paperwork on that when they closed the alley, the ordinance for when they closed the alley that abuts it. It appears that the city came in and dumped a bunch of concrete and then put some dirt fill on top of that. And whether the owner kind of went with it and just backfilled in all of the dirt, but that back part, the non-historic addition, the dirt was up above, it was basically at the subfloor level. So what was happening was the water was flowing over the cinder block stem wall into the house, so underneath the house was a complete pool of water, which led to rot, termite damage. Everything was destroyed back there. So we had to completely rebuild the back part addition where it is lower, where the water was coming in. So these changes are basically, especially the grade change and the retaining wall is really required to preserve the property. So that when we get this thing fully remodeled, it'll be a solid house, solid draining for years to come.
Nate, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, again, this is a bit of a complicated application, so I'm just going to ask you, are you proposing to change the grade behind the house and to the north only?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, since the driveway and the sidewalk are at the current grade, I really can't do much anywhere else.
Okay. So the house we see in one of the photographs here to the north, I believe, sits higher than this
Yes,
house.
that's the highest side. That's the closed
Okay.
alley is
Okay.
the north side.
So the grade change will not affect that property. Is there any consideration to what it will do or how it will potentially affect the house to the south?
No, I think the way that the water's going to run off, essentially to the south, we're really hardly changing that. I think it's going to, drain into my yard and then also down along the sidewalk, the driveway, and push off a little bit to. There's two houses essentially that are to the south, so there will be a little bit of runoff, but it's not going to be a steep to where all the water is going to be running off to the south properties.
Thank you.
Did you say that that stone, is it a veneer? You said it was over the existing
Yes, it's
siding?
over the existing siding. We've already got administration approval to remove that stone and bring it back to the historic condition with the wood siding, metal corners.
All right. Okay.
I'm happy that you're doing this and you're going to save the house. So I would recommend, unless anyone has any other comments, I would Katie, can I do all of these at once? Looks like we can recommend approval, or I'm recommending approval for item 1, 2, 1 and 2.
Unless Rita has an objection, I think you could motion to approve with the specific findings, unique circumstances, and conditions as listed in the staff report, if you don't have any additional changes.
I do not have additional changes, and that is my motion.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Neil Clemens, second by Ann Zackwitz. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? You're approved.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, next case.
HPCA 15-00089 at 3817 North McKinley Avenue, Putnam Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Mark and Gloria Vera for certificate of appropriateness to 1 demolished garage, elective.
Is the applicant present? There may be a question, but probably not. Any comments? Go ahead and sign in if you would.
Hi, I'll mark none. See y'all now.
Hello? you like to say anything?
Oh, I didn't know if you guys would start it. Sorry.
You said it all.
So basically, we went in with the idea of restoring the garage. That was the second phase of purchasing this property. You know, we really spent most of the time working on the main part, which is the house, and getting it all restored. I went out to the house just really, you know, since we bought the house, the garage where you see that it's covered, the door, what is on there, but it only has 3 panels of the door. So my whole intent was like, well, I'm just going to go rebuild this lower part of the garage door. You know, the studio that's built inside the garage had the parts I needed to match it, and that's really was the case. The further I got into it, the further I noticed how really structurally bad this house is built, or garage is built, and really to save it would probably be a lot. So looking more into the wall, it's like, you know, you got the concrete in there, and the concrete's all cracked, and it's already shifting. We dug on the outside to look to see what the foundation looks like, and there really is no foundation. When I opened up the wall from the inside, I've noticed that there's been some studs that have been placed beside studs that have deteriorated already, and you can see that right there. And that tells me that this has been a problem, an ongoing problem, because this wall used to be covered up by boards, and I took those off to expose what's really going on. And basically, I found that they've had water problems for I don't know how long, forever since. And just putting more studs on there is not really going to fix the problem. It's just going to prolong it. And that's kind of where I was rebuilding the garage door. And I noticed, you know, a lot of the windows that are around there have no headers. And you saw that the back wall there, it's already starting to bow. The back wall itself is off the slab. There's no anchor bolts holding it on. It's actually on the dirt already. You can see that, you know, they didn't even have like 3 studs in the corner to keep the wall tied together. So it's really just saving it is like lifting the house up and really you'll have to redo the whole back, the drainage, of course, which is what I plan on doing later on is, you know, maybe trying to get the water more away from the house because, you know, obviously we know it kills them.
Okay.
What are your future plans for this?
Future plans, I do plan on rebuilding a garage back there because, I mean, with the hailstorms we're having now, it's kind of nice to be able to cover your cars. There are a lot of things I do like about this that I would like to incorporate into a future building. One, the ridge cap, you know, it matches what's on my building. The pitch of the roof itself matches. And, you know, like I said, we went in with the idea of restoring this. We reframed the roof. We had to reframe the roof because it was pretty bad, sagging already. And it's just, at this point now, getting something that has a stem wall on it is more kind of a goal to keep from the water from really killing anything else you put into it.
It's a substantial home, so I think a garage would be good in the future.
Yeah, sure. And I really, you know, what it is, what we did to the house, we really wanted to still match. And we wanted to really still have that feel, you know, like it's historic and everything. So I know we're going to be with Pamela on future, but as of now, we just want to make sure we can go ahead and move forward. No. And
okay. Any questions?
Or just, I like the garage door that you've got. The one
I do too.
It's there. I think it's a good-looking door.
It's a nice-looking building's too bad it's in such bad shape.
Yeah, I would say the rest of it looks like the only good thing that's there. So.
Yeah.
Don't we, I mean, I guess on garages, are they an exception in that if we have, when we tear a garage down and it's original, don't we have the original design to follow when we go back?
Yes, there are several references in the guidelines to when there's evidence of the historic garage that new garages should approximate the historic appearance. So, yeah, when we have documentation of what it looked like before, that should really serve to guide the design.
I make a motion to approve HPCA 15-00089, item 1, with the specific findings noted by staff in the report.
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded by Joe Meacham, and, excuse me, moved by Joe Meacham, second by George Massey. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, you're approved.
Thank you.
HPCA 15-00095 at 714 Northwest 18th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Jared Smith, LLC, for certificate of appropriateness to 2 replace front porch columns, elective, 3 demolish garage, elective, and 4 construct garage, elective.
Hello, I'm Jared. I've actually got a couple things here. The front elevations that were actually sent out on the report were the wrong ones. We had updated the new one, so I printed them out for you. That are specifically for the columns. And I'm not really opposed to anything on the columns. I don't know and don't believe that the columns are original to the house. The previous owner had said that he had actually rebuilt the whole front side of the porch, which is evident of the photos of the underneath side with new wood. It still does have a wood slat porch, and he said that he had replaced some of the cinder blocks. So there's no other findings as far as what was there originally, and anything that we have been able to pull up. So in moving forward, really, only thing that I'm looking for is just an approval of what I can do differently. The reason I really don't think they are original is that they're just cinder blocks stacked all the way up, and there's no decorative trim on the top or anything. And you do find some cinder blocks throughout, but most everything that big and bulky were brick throughout the neighborhood. Not to say that the cinder blocks are not original, but and on the front elevation too, you will to the right where I scratched out the photo I sent you. To the right is actually brick, and that's not cinder blocks. And I believe that she had stated in the report that the foundation and stem wall was built of cinder blocks, which that is not the case on that.
So other than that mark on there, that they're brick, and it looks like the front door change, is there anything different?
Yeah, the columns are different. I think as far as the staff are going, the columns, the first that we just had a little bit of miscommunication, and me and my architect that was drawing, and I was wanting to propose what basically is right next door, that, kind of the bulky that overlaps. I know all of them kind of overlap the beam, and they're not flush with it, where so there was a little bit of miscommunication there, but I'm open to doing whatever we need to do. Like I said, I don't believe that the cinder blocks were original. If they were, then great, we can leave them. We are going to have to rebuild the very far back left one because it is leaning where it's definitely not structurally sound anyway.
So you think that all of the CMU, the concrete block, was not original?
I don't believe that it was original, but like I said, I don't know for a fact. I know that the previous owner had told me that he rebuilt the whole front end of the porch, or the front side of the porch.
I don't think it's original either.
It's just the way there obviously were cinder blocks and cast stone that were back at that point, but the condition of the house and everything underneath the house, there's a pile of bricks there. And with the wood being replaced on the front end, I just can't imagine that being original to what was there. And the railing being 32 inches too. I believe most of the historic railing was 24 or the shorter railing too. But like I said, I haven't been able to find anything to prove that, so it's just kind of what I believe.
It looks like there was a original railing removed because there's an imprint.
Yeah, there's marks on the existing columns from previous railing location.
Right.
So it looks like the previous owner did do a lot of work on the front.
Yeah. A lot
What do you
of bad
think, what do you think the columns were then? Any idea?
I have no clue.
Just not blocked?
Yeah, I would just assume that, they were something round or something like I proposed, and maybe there were cinder block halfway up, or I just haven't seen a cinder block completely all the way to the top and not have some sort of decorative trim and just not being finished off like you see in the photo there.
Katie, I'm looking at the one that was submitted, and then I'm looking at the one that he turned in. Does the new one that they turned in address the issues that you all had? The one he turned in has the bigger concrete block and it's set even with the beam, and then the new one has the brick column and it's set offset from the beam. Sorry.
But you're proposing to retain the concrete block around the porch?
Around the front of the porch, yeah, the concrete block, I propose to leave it there and just to rebuild the actual columns and to repair the concrete block on the front.
Would that be the only concrete block on the house?
To the front and the left, yes.
To the what?
Yeah, to the north and the east. Yeah, that'd be the only concrete block that's on the house. And I'm not opposed to making that brick too. I mean, just kind of whatever it needs to be.
Since there's a block on the existing house is really brick painted white.
Was that your concern, Katie?
Huh. It's like detective work.
I mean, I think staff's overall concern was just whether or not these columns were original, because there's evidence of concrete block all the way around the house as well as at the historic garage. So, we tend to fall fairly conservatively on assuming that something's original unless we have something to really clearly tell us that it's.
Where else was the finding of the other concrete block on the house? Do you recall? That's not concrete block. That's actually a cement stem or a stem. Did you go down in the basement? Oh, okay. Yeah. It does look like it could have been concrete block and faced with cement, but it's actually just stem wall. Yeah.
And I mean, it is common to take out foundation and replace it with concrete block when you're having foundation problems. Even from the basement, they might even come out to the outside, take the foundation out, and start on the outside. So it's hard to say.
Well, I think when you look at the broken CMU that you can see in some of the photos, it looks like more modern concrete block that has, just two big holes in it, as opposed to, if it were original fabric, concrete blocks from that day would typically have much, more cells, but much smaller cells, as opposed to
these definitely the one, because actually the east wall had fallen over, and actually, if you see in the picture here, they're the more modern ones with the bigger holes.
Hey, Angela, can you show the picture under the porch? Can you show the picture under the porch?
Look at that. Save the best for last year. There we go. What are we looking at?
I mean, that looks like a repair.
Oh, it was, at some point, someone put in piers in the
That
front.
looks probably like the porch rail.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the whole house is, yeah.
So the right is the face of the existing house, and we're looking at the base of the column, and there's brick sitting on something.
That looks like an original pier.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad.
Yeah, the three, I guess.
Those blocks have multiple openings.
But then there are also some that just have two.
I've kind of come full circle on my thoughts about this.
And I mean, I just want to see something that goes back that needs to be there, and just, anything that's, you guys think that's going to need to be there. I don't really oppose to anything. I mean, I like what I presented, but if it is, something else that you would recommend, I would
Okay, did you have any other?
not be opposed to it.
I mean, do you think, I'm just asking, with those changes, would staff approve if we are in agreement that we don't think that the columns are original?
Do we already have this?
No, you have, the one he turned in is slightly different.
You have, or Angela has that one actually was emailed to her, but it wasn't in the packet, the packet that was sent out.
I mean, I haven't seen this at a glance. I don't see anything terrible. The alignment with the porch roof looks right. Angela, do you have any other comments on that?
No, I do not. The staff report is based entirely on the fact that we have no documentation as to whether or not the columns are historic or not. There is evidence at retaining walls and the piers next to the steps and at the garage that concrete and concrete block has been used extensively on this property. If the commission does believe, in fact, that these are non-historic columns, and I do not disagree, I simply have no evidence otherwise, then the proposed plan that has been provided to us appears to be compatible with the structure as it currently exists.
Okay, I've got a question for you.
Yep.
Looking at your east elevation, I'm assuming the west elevation is similar? With a concrete retaining wall or stem wall?
The brick, or which one? Which part are you?
Well, it's shown as concrete, the east elevation.
Yes, it is it's been faced with concrete and smoothed over. It looks like it's probably been redone.
But it's concrete below there or brick?
It is, well, it's brick faced with concrete, yeah.
Brick faced with concrete.
Right.
Because I'm wondering what happens on the west side, at the front corner, that looks like it's been painted white, the brick? Or is that the same material?
No clue why the brick was painted white.
Well, I mean, my question is what's going to happen to the lower portion of the wall? Is it going to stay as is? Is that right there? Is that paint?
Yeah, it's paint.
Is it the same as the side? Or is it?
It's just, well, that front and the front portion, for some odd reason, was painted that yellow
What happens
color.
when it turns a corner on the west?
It's the same as the east elevation.
So at
Concrete.
that corner, you've got paint meeting a concrete
correct.
coating on the brick.
Yes.
The same height.
Yep.
That's kind of very strange.
Yeah, I don't know. No idea what was done there.
You don't have a photograph of the west
elevation?
West side, do you, Andrew? I just wonder trying to figure this thing out.
I mean, as far as the brick on both the front east and the front west corners, there's significant cracking there, so I don't know if that was rebuilt at some point.
So that is paint.
Oh, there it is.
Right, that's paint.
On the right, and you
Right.
turn the corner and it goes to the same as the east elevation, which you say is like cement stucco on brick.
Correct.
Sounds like it would appear to me that they were trying to repair the foundation, and for some reason they just left the brick in the front, so when they painted the concrete on the west side, they just went ahead with the paint line to even it out. Which means probably the original foundation was shorter, that the brick came down lower. It looks like if you measured that, it looks like that maybe there'd be 5 or 6 courses of brick that was originally around the whole house, but they took those off when they redid the foundation, built the concrete block up higher. That would be one of my guesses.
Are you proposing leaving that painted white?
No, not necessarily, no.
I was wondering what's going to...
I really would like to propose painting the whole thing, but I don't know if that's, such a thing that would...
You're saying you paint the whole house?
Huh?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to paint the entire house, the brick and all.
We don't have to vote on that one.
Because we have significant brick repair to do also. And we're currently trying to find the brick right now.
Katie, do you feel like that we need more information?
I think if you all are confident that these are not the original porch columns, and if you feel that the proposed new columns are compatible, I don't think we need additional information on those.
Well, I'm not comfortable with the design of the front porch as it relates to the rest of the house. That's my point.
Just the columns?
Well, the whole thing, what's the infill? It says block. There's apparently no block anywhere else. What color is it? It could be brick, but there's the brick on the rest of the house has either been painted or got cement stucco coating on the lower portion.
So what are you proposing, just replacing that concrete block?
I don't know.
with brick,
That's
or-
what I think that's, okay, so let me ask, if you did the brick columns, are you proposing to leave the existing concrete block and paint it again?
Correct. That's, yeah.
Okay, so you're not making changes to the foundation, you're just, where it needs to be repaired with concrete block, you would use concrete block and paint it again.
Correct. And
On that one little corner, then, I guess we can't make you, but I think what Alan's saying is that at that point, we'd
You're wanting
want
that
to take the paint off the brick.
That's the only place there'll be brick going down the ground. I mean, unpainted brick or uncoated brick. That's just odd to me. And then you have the
Right.
corner, you'd see coating, and then you'd see brick. It'd be,
We still don't have that, I'm with you, though, we don't know what the west side looks like. What does it do when it turns that?
It looks exactly like the west side. It turns around, it
east side.
turns on, yeah, the east side, yeah. The west side and the east side are the same.
I just don't understand how that
Yeah, no idea.
works. But
I guess what I'm saying is, are you looking for approval for, I mean, is there more that we need to approve if he's not going to change the concrete blocks? Because he's saying, if you look at that, are you just saying you're taking the columns down and replacing them with brick, with the wood, and that everything else is going to be either left or repaired, the
Correct.
same material?
Yes.
Well,
Angela, is there some other information you felt like needed to be turned in, submitted?
I just don't know how you do that. Take out those columns, there's concrete steps tying into them, supporting the porch, and then you come in with brick, leaving the block in place and everything around it. I just don't know how you do that.
And I believe that I also brought that up in your staff report. I am unaware of how it is going to be possible to remove those and maintain the existing porch walls and existing piers.
Well, he's saying he's going to. I mean, he's going to have to if he says he's limited to.
Are you telling me that everything is original? Or,
Oh, he's limited
but you don't
to if
really
he-
know?
What?
I mean, I'm not opposed to the brick. If you guys want me to take the whole front porch off, I would love to. I mean, that's totally fine, because it's an eyesore to me, in my opinion.
Well,
but I mean, I'm not opposed to putting brick. But the thing, I was just trying to leave as much as what was there, and to make it, look a little bit better than being just
Well,
big
to
chunky
me,
concrete
feasibly, you
blocks.
can't go in and take out those columns and put in brick, and I don't think that concrete block was original, it doesn't fit in. I would think you'd want to come back with a new design. And I would
Well,
be
the only
opposed
new
to-
design would be that there would be brick in place of the concrete block.
But then it wouldn't coordinate with the other parts of the house. We have to look at the overall design. And so, I don't know.
Okay, yeah. So are you suggesting concrete blocks then?
I was looking at this elevation, if this was brick on the right side, where it's painted brick, you'd want that to be the same. But then you go in the corner, it's something else. That's why I
So there's
can't,
really no, I mean,
I don't know.
I don't,
What do you think?
you tell me.
I'm at an impasse about this, what I would recommend. of
I mean,
like,
there's either, they're either going to, there's, I mean, either cinder block goes there, or, I mean, unless you put some kind of wood lattice or something there, I mean, I don't really know what else. And it's,
Could
I
be
mean, it is a
brick
wood
with a-
structure,
with a
but I mean, I don't really know
stucco.
what else you're going to put.
could be brick with a cement stucco coating, and like apparently
Like the-
the east and the west side of the house is,
Yeah.
and then do that little piece of wall left.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that either. Put a stucco coating on the front and then leaving the brick columns. So we're just basically replacing the entire wall there, rebricking the columns like
And
the
match the east-
structure, and then
Match the east and west sides.
stucco the front and the east side and the west side, I guess, on the little piece to match the existing.
I would want to see more information on what the material then is on the east and the west.
So are you proposing to,
Is there no pictures of the east or west?
are you proposing to match the brick on the columns to the house?
If we can find them, yes. If not, then we'll get as close as possible, and I would assume just paint the columns. I mean, 'cause I don't know personally what else to do. I mean, because it's, like I said, it is what it is.
There's a used brick yard, you can probably get pretty close. Looks like a common color.
It's that, well, it's that kind of yellow flat
It's that yellow.
stuff.
Yeah, it's an odd
You
size
know,
brick,
it's
too.
it's an odd one.
Yeah, it's,
Um, Katie?
I was just going to say, we don't usually approve painting brick, so if that's
Right.
something that
No, I think
People- I think
Alan
we
said
wanna-
that before. I'm in
yeah,
agreement. No
Right.
painting brick.
what else? What happens if I can't find the brick on the repair of the front brick and everything? Do you just replace it with whatever I can find as close as possible? Because when we redo that front corner wall, we will break some brick. I guess what,
we would just, you would work with staff to
Okay, and just
find-
figure out what the
show us
best
what's
option is
available.
there.
And, I mean, I would think we'd be able to find something, you'd be able to find something that was a pretty close match. And if there's just purely nothing out there at all,
right,
we might have to come back to the commission with
Okay.
some alternative material.
gotcha.
East and west sides. But regardless, I'd like to see the east and west side, what that material is that is called out as, on the drawing, as concrete retaining wall. If we're proposing to match the front porch wall.
I think we're going towards continuing. Do we want to discuss the garage?
Go for it.
If you are going to go towards continuance, can we do it for the September meeting?
What was that?
That's fine. I don't really, I mean, 2 months away on a remodel is a lot of money, so I'd prefer just to get it, I can have it done, whatever needs to be done. And you're really needing photos of the east and west elevation, it sounds like, and that's pretty much it.
And close up in detail what you propose, what that material is, and how you would propose treating the porch, stem wall, whatever, porch wall.
Okay.
Are you leaving the steps?
We'll have to repair the steps, yes.
Make a motion to continue HPCA 15-00095, item 2, to the September 2nd meeting.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Joe Meacham, second by Nilo Frank Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 2 is continued.
As to one more question on that. As to the columns, though, I mean, are we okay there as far as the columns, except for we just kind of want to figure out what we're going to do with where the concrete block is in the front and making that match the east sides and the back?
That seems to be the big issue.
The big issue is really not the columns. It's going to be just what's replaced with where the cinder block is right there. Correct.
That's my issue, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Perfect.
Under the garage.
The garage on the demolition, I mean, I don't really have anything to say on that.
Katie, was there an issue of getting a permit to build the garage on the proposed site?
We sometimes see issues with construction of garages and construction of other things when there's, you don't build a house that close to the property line, but with permits and how close a structure is to the property line, that things will have to be fire rated or that development services will require the structure to be moved slightly. So, the commission can approve something, and then if they end up having to move it because of the permitting requirements, then it's something that would either be administratively amended or would come back to the commission, depending upon the scope of the change. We just try to call attention to that in advance so that people don't get held up down the line when they go for a permit.
And is the questions you had on height, because the proposed design is higher than the original one? Is that
I know that there's like a...
I believe it just appeared taller than we usually see on historic garages. It's, an additional 2 feet above the height of the garage door to the eave. Although there are taller garages, there are shorter and taller garages at surrounding properties.
Is there a reason you want extra height, a 10-foot height?
No, there's no, I just was kind of wanting to put it in the same line as the eaves of the house and also the actual garage that's setting 2 feet away. Which, if you want to go back to it, that one's a 10-foot.
Oh, to the side?
Yeah, to the side there.
Oh, yeah, that's a...
Just to go on record about that garage, the one that's there, at least most of it's not historic, so to me you'd be back in the guideline range of the 450, so I would not be in favor of voting for this one that's 720.
But most of the existing garage is not historic? Okay.
So you're wanting a 450 square foot garage is what you're wanting?
Yes.
I mean, that's not, what is that, 20 by 20?
20 by 22.
Yeah, it's not a very big garage.
Cost less.
What's our limit? 450?
What?
What's our limit?
450.
450.
Except for the existing structures, like 800 and something. Even though it's not
I think what Greg's, the interpretation he's making is that if it was the historic footprint, you could go with the larger size. If it's not the historic footprint, then we're back to the 450. Unless the historic
I can't even fit my truck and a car in a 450.
What?
It's just a really, really small. I guess that's just kind of what you came up with.
That's what we do on all garages in
Yeah.
historic districts.
As of last year, or as of this year, I guess. Okay. I just was assuming since there's that's a garage and an apartment. So if I put in a garage and an apartment back there, what would you recommend on that?
I'd have to see what you proposed for it, because that'd be new construction, and then the apartment.
Well, it's all going to be new construction, so, okay.
Angela, do we know when the dates for the expansion of this garage? No, we don't. I will say that
it's before the 50s.
It was Larry Herschel's recently, the garage that we'd approved demolition and reconstruction like 2 years ago. It expired. They came back and we approved it again. They were approved to go back with a larger garage that was bigger than the 450 based upon the square footage of their existing garage, despite the fact that that existing garage had various modifications to it. I don't recall the dates on those either, but we have allowed people to go bigger based on the size, even when part of that size was an addition. So just.
Yeah, if that's the one I remember, there was some question about how much of it was historic, though, and there was, because I read the staff report closely, and it indicated that it was bigger than the 450, the historic version, which is why I voted yes on that.
So you're saying it's going to be 450 no matter what? Is that kind of, or is there some?
Well,
other
I think that's
say in
what some of the commission would say. Some
Yeah,
of the rest of the commission
I'm
would be
not
okay
in
with
favor
it.
of that by any means. I would propose to continue with what I have.
So I think we can probably consider the demolition first, because that has to happen before a new garage is built, and then discuss the new construction.
Okay. So a letter from engineer. No foundation. Comments on the demolition?
Looks, I think staff found that, the garage has been added to and added to. Most of the historic materials are gone. We have notes from Mesta Park Historic Preservation Group, and they would agree with that. Do we have a note from an engineer?
Yep.
We do, yeah. So with that, I would move approval. HPCA 15-00095, item 3, to demolish garage structure.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Neil Craig Clements and seconded by Greg Eddington. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 3 is approved. Now on to the garage itself.
So on that, I guess my question is, it's been added to, but do we know how large the original garage was?
We do.
We do?
Is that from the county assessor? 12 by 20.
Did you say the county assessor?
Yeah.
That's
Is it not accurate?
not accurate.
It says 12 by 22 for the garage portion, which is on the left. looking at it.
Matthew said it's not accurate, but if that's our only record, maybe do you have something else that would
I
Say
do
something
not have.
different.
I mean, they have the garage portion being on the east side, and the garage portion now is on the west side.
That's right.
The 12-foot, I mean, I don't know, it's the 12 feet, I don't know where 12-foot is anywhere. I don't know. It's,
How big
it's,
does it say?
and it's not even in the right spot. Where I don't know.
So looking at the Sanborn maps, I mean, the
Would've
garage
been-
that's shown on the Sanborn map does not look anything like
No, it doesn't.
what you would think was the original garage on the county. So I think we might need to do a little bit more research on what the original garage was,
And
what
the
the size
original
of
garage-
garages are
yeah.
around you.
What looks original, which you've been out there, is what would have, in my opinion, would have been on the southwest corner of the property. And the apartment would have been added on. So
Right.
at least maybe one addition and possibly two. So as far as as you can see on this photo here, to the right looks what would be original to me as far as the inside framing and everything. And then you have the apartment, which maybe that first part was added on, and then the opposite. But it's, like I said, it's
Oh,
hard.
okay.
It's very hard to say because it's just a jumbled mess.
It's from the garage on the right.
Or absolutely nothing is original on it.
I mean, it sounds like you're wanting to go with your larger plan, but I kind of feel like, I feel like I need more information.
What sort of
We want
information?
to support good development, and if we can do that, we need something else that shows that that would allow us to approve a larger garage.
Being,
maybe
Burden of proof is on
foundation,
you.
maybe, looking at the foundation, I don't know.
I think otherwise we'll have to fall back on the 450 square foot limits, which doesn't sound like you're too thrilled about.
Well, I mean, this is more than likely going to be my personal home, and I would really not prefer to be able to not park 2 vehicles in a garage that I just built. That's just my preference.
I don't know how big your cars are, but my garage is 18 by 18, and we park 2 in.
Yeah, that's very, very, very tight. I have one large vehicle and.
You park 2 cars in there?
2 cars and an 18?
18 by 18.
2
minis?
Yeah,
one mini, one large car.
One mini, okay.
I mean, anyway,
Well,
that's just.
The 450 has
thought.
been, we have been pretty well sticking to that rule without additional information.
Right. I just need to know what additional information.
So I think more information about the age of the additions to the garage, if we can figure that out, if we can figure out a better estimate of what the size of the historic garage was, as well as the size of historic garages that are around you. If you are surrounded by larger historic garages, then that would be a good reason to go larger.
Yeah, I don't know. There's one 2 doors down that's a monstrosity. It's about 3,000 square feet. But I don't know if it's historic or not.
So, I mean, obviously there's
It's 2 stories.
You've got an old garage that's been there long enough that it's falling down.
Right.
So it's been there a while.
Right. I would think it's been there at least since, I don't know exactly where I saw this, but at least since the 50s.
Well, if we could have some documentation of that.
Okay.
And the garage you're proposing isn't a significant change to the build to open space from what is there now that's been
Right.
there for quite a while.
Right.
If we could have some identification of how long that's been there, maybe that helps
Well,
the rest of the commission.
To me, is part of this a garage? It doesn't look like there's any door openings.
The right
part
west
was-
side is a garage. It's got 2.
Does it open to the alley?
Yeah, it opens to the alley.
Oh, opens to the alley, okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
And at one point, maybe that it didn't open to the alley because the driveway, I mean, there is concrete that goes all the way up
That's why we're
to
confused.
the east side of that. So possibly that was just completely rebuilt at some point in time. It's hard to say. There's your.
It's hard to say. I mean,
Well, two doors there on the southwest corner of it.
Well, to me, some of the open space, taking this down and putting something smaller in its place would be an improvement. So.
Yes. We're moving in the right direction.
Right. Maybe not quite as big.
Anything is an improvement. I mean, look at it.
It will be an
the
improvement.
whole place.
Okay. So we continue?
Make a motion to, let's see, we did the garage.
We did all except
Did we
for-
make a motion for the porch?
Yes. It's continued.
So do we want to continue the garage?
I would prefer the September meeting also, if that's possible.
I make a motion to continue HPCA 15-00095, item 4, to the September 2nd meeting.
Second.
Okay, been moved by Joe Meacham and seconded by Neela Craig Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 4 is continued. Thank you. See you in September. Isn't that song?
So, Angela, I need to have that stuff to you by
No, I won't.
next Tuesday.
We've already addressed other business.
Okay.
Communications and reports. We have, as you can see, many administrative approvals.
Oh, look at that.
People are busy. One administrative closure that just applied, didn't submit the requested documentation, and eventually we close them out. The SPUD at 3012 North Walker, this was the commercial property in Jefferson Park that wanted to rezone to allow alcohol, let's see, anticipated to be heard by City Council on August 4th, yesterday. Okay, so I don't know what happened to that, sorry. We'll find out what the status is on that one and let you all know. We don't have anything going to Board of Adjustment. The next step for the Marion will be Planning Commission, so we'll let you know the date for that and report back.
Anything from municipal councilor? Okay. Let's see, we have next meeting date scheduled for September 2nd, 2 p.m., right here, as we discussed. New applications are due August 4th, which was yesterday. And new information about existing projects for the upcoming meeting must be submitted by 4 o'clock on August 11th. And next regular scheduled workshop, did we decide to keep that? Oh, it has been canceled. There it is. September 9th has been canceled. Item 9, there is items from commissioners. There's one thing that we wanted to announce, that ad hoc committee for identification of historic landmarks in the city of Oklahoma City has been formed. Members will be Joe Meacham, Neela Crane Clements, and Heather Clemmer. And item 10, are there any citizens to be heard?
I appreciate, back to items from commissioners.
Okay.
Neela, is there any information more you could tell us about Gatewood and the process, what's happening? For zoning?
So some of us are trying to interest Gatewood residents into going HP. We've had a couple of meetings, and it's been really good. We've had a few people who are dead set against it, and a few that love it, and everybody else is kind of in the middle. So Katie has been gracious to attend both the meetings. George came to one to help me explain why it's a positive thing, that we're trying to be stewards of these historic homes. So there's still a lot of questions to answer, a lot of troops to rally, but we'll probably have another meeting sometime in the next month to reach out to more neighbors. But I think it's going to be a process.
Could I suggest that maybe Shannon Rundle, some of the other Alliance members might come and answer questions? Would that help?
I think that's something to consider, yes.
And was to delineate certain sections of Gatewood? Has that been discussed? I know
We would prefer to designate the entire neighborhood.
the entire.
And what are the boundaries of Gatewood?
It is on the south, northwest, 16th.
The north side of 16th, or not the commercial area, or?
Not the commercial area, the north side of 16th, yes.
It's the south side of 17th.
I think that
But we're
what they would
trying, I
likely do is
believe.
include the north side of 16th,
Yeah.
but leave out what's already the Plaza District,
Okay.
which is already under the Urban Design Commission.
I guess my point, I've been seeing some comments about the commercialization of 16th Street east of the Plaza District, and that's probably adding some incentive to the
I think so.
HP district.
And to expand on that, we're also looking to partner with Class and 10 Penn to designate the south side of 16th Street. So we have that whole corridor there, not just one side of the street. But I think that would address some concerns with a lot of developers wanting to go commercial.
So then Class and 10 Penn is also looking at?
Just that one side of 16th, not the neighborhood of Class and 10. Although we are working on a little something else with Katie for Class and 10 Penn.
Something like Jefferson Park or something? Or? You don't want to talk about it? To be determined, to be announced later. Okay, anything else?
That's the SPUD, Rita whizzed that up on her phone, and it was approved with some conditions. So,
Okay.
Jefferson Park.
Okay. Joe?
Is there anything further we can do about the demolition process for the Jefferson Park?
I believe residents have already asked for a meeting with city council representatives to find out more about if there are things that could be done differently with the dilapidated structure process. So I'm happy to report back on outcomes.
I'm just kind of
that.
surprised because it seems like that we've had houses in the historic districts that have qualified for dilapidation in the past, and they never got to that point. I mean, they went for years where we were trying to work with the residents, and the city never came in, even though I'm sure it was on one of their lists, I mean, one of the things that you could have said. And they never, I mean, we've had holes in roofs, we've had unsecured properties, we've had all sorts of stuff, and the city never jumped right in after 1 year and went forward like this.
A couple of things. One is that the city, over the last year and a half, 2 years, has developed a new program to address vacant and abandoned buildings much more aggressively and to try to move much more quickly with the code enforcement process and not let buildings sit and be dilapidated. So you're seeing a lot more things on the code enforcement report and just a quicker turnaround time on from when they get that first notice to when they end up with a court date. So that's part of it, is that their whole process is moving more quickly and more forcefully. And then I would say this house, if you look back through the county assessor photos, it's looked not good for a very long time. I mean, I know that the current owners only purchased it about 2 years ago.
I have a question there, too. If you're the owner, you know, a lot of owners, they do not want their house demolished. That's why they don't get demolished. So the owner, you know, even though they may not be making repairs, they are working with code enforcement saying, hey, we're going to, will you give us some more time? In this case, it seems like, was it the opposite? That once the dilapidation deal they're like, hey, we got our way accidentally. They haven't been, because in most cases, like I say, people don't want it. They know it's in terrible condition, but they don't, they're fighting it by saying, please give us more time.
Usually the dilapidated process is a very effective tool for motivating people that this really is serious and you really need to do something to address your building. Unfortunately, there are times when having it torn down is what the property owner does want, and that is their ultimate goal. And so I think there needs to be some additional some thought on how to address maintenance of the property all along the way instead of just at the end point.
That would be nice. But so the process is triggered by a complaint.
For the most part, yes.
So
code enforcement is generally reactive to someone calling in property.
Anybody, it could have been the owner.
Yep, you can do it on your phone. You can download the app.
I noticed they were here. They didn't want to speak, though. So.
What about the garage? I thought that was we had some comment about that being a non-historic garage, and the demolition of that would probably have flown.
You know, I think we recommended approval of the demolition of the garage when it came through previously. The garage didn't match what was on the Sanborns as late as 1955. There was, if I remember correctly, there was some debate about that maybe the Sanborn maps were just wrong because it does look like a very old garage. But staff had less concern when we had that first application to demolish about the garage.
But the style was nowhere near historic, right? Of the garage?
It looked like an old garage, but it was,
Not a
it was
20s
much
or
larger.
30s,
Yeah,
right?
it was much larger than what was on the Sanborns, and
Yeah.
seemed pretty large for that house for that time period.
Okay. Any citizens to be heard? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Oh.